Sorry? Why you standing? Please sit down. All right. Gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, we have the honor today to have AEG. I'm sure that you know them all and all, but let me introduce to you John Zinzer, the president and the owner of everything. And Mark Wooton, who is taking care of the future of L5R. And Nicolas Bonjour, of course, who is a brand manager of L5R. Okay. I've received a lot of questions, so I've translated them and I gave them to AEG, and they will try to answer them and spill the beans as much as possible. And if you have any open questions, then you can ask, of course, but after the session, okay? All right, and I'm giving the mic to Mark, okay?
The best accent. Thank you and welcome. Probably the first thing I should do is just clarify my position with regard to L5R so that next time I'm in California, Brian doesn't jump me. I have a responsibility in the company for a range of our creative projects. So, you know, overall responsibility for the design and development of L5R is with Brian Rees, not specifically with me. Just to get that clear from the start. We're going to try and go through and answer all of the questions that we've been given here. But I do need to start off by saying that some of the questions are quite specific, and we aren't in a position to kind of spoil anything, right? So although we're going to try and answer as many questions as we can about what sort of things are going to be happening in Ivory, and you know, if you've got anything that you'd like to know about, it is going to be general. We can't kind of spoil stuff, okay? So I need to start by saying anything that you've asked which would involve us going too far into a spoiler, we're only going to be able to answer it in general terms, okay? So I'll kick off with that. Right, so the very first question is release. When is Ivory Edition going to be released? The plan to release Ivory is February 2014, okay? Alternate cards. Are you planning to release more promotional cards with alternate art, foil cards, or full bleed cards? The answer to that, I think, simply is yes. We have tried to review what we are doing with promotional cards in general. We've had quite a lot of comments from players about, you know, what they like about promotional cards, what they dislike about promotional cards. We want to be very aware of the impact that promotional cards have, for example, for new players trying to get into the game who maybe haven't had access to them in the past. And so we've done a complete review. We are going to be having more of a focus on the concept of alternate art and other ways of presenting cards that you may already have. So we want certainly, I think the overall concept behind promo cards is we want to give you way more cool. We want to give you, you know, way more things that are fun and interesting. And sure, that there are going to be some functionally different cards, but we definitely want to readdress the balance so that, you know, the promo stuff is cool, interesting. You know, it's something that you want, but it isn't absolutely necessary to be a competitive player. Okay, so yeah, and to get from where we are now to that position is going to be a work in progress. So we are going to move to the point where, you know, cool and other value in the promo cards, other than their use in competitive play, is the major concern. Okay. Strongholds. The questions we've been asked here is: will strongholds have the same gold production? What additional bonuses will reverses of stronghold have? Are you planning to change the stats hugely? Various quite specific questions. So I'll try and do those as best I can. by and large, strongholds are going to have the same gold production that they currently have based on the clans. The additional bonuses that reverse sides of strongholds will have will be, some of them will be numerical, things like province strength. Okay, I think that's already been talked about, that, you know, some clans when they go second may have a higher province strength. Other clans will have an additional ability on the stronghold that specifically relates to their clan theme that makes them slightly more effective when they're going second. And I think, as Brian said in one of the design diaries, it's also possible to try and figure out the sort of matches that they're going to be going second in. I mean, for some it's easier than others, obviously. I mean, you know that a Lion Clan stronghold going second is only going to be going second to another Lion Clan, so you can kind of figure out what it is they need in that matchup. You can look at other clans as low honor clans and figure out that their going second side of the stronghold is going to be used much more often, and therefore, you know, it needs to be better against a range of different deck archetypes. So the answer about the clans is it's going to be a variety of things. It's going to be some numbers and it's going to be some abilities. But again, you know, we haven't released that information, so I can't give you specifics about that. I'll hand over to Nico, actually, just to talk about when we are planning to talk about Imperial Assembly strongholds, and some questions about whether we're doing. Imperial. I see IE and I still say Imperial. Ivory Edition strongholds, and there's a question about unaligned strongholds as well.
So the question was, when will you show Ivory Edition Stronghold? We plan on doing that starting January. We may release that info earlier, but at this time, it's looking like January. The second question was, will there be a stronghold for unaligned, like Palace of the Breaking Dawn or the Forgotten Temple? There is no unaligned stronghold in the base set in Ivory. As you know, due to Gen Con results, Foothold of the Mad is going to be legal, though. So for the fans of unaligned, that will be an option. The next question is regarding Sensei. Will Sensei be released with Ivory Edition or in a later expansion? So there will be one Sensei per clan in the base set, and then with expansions, we're going to look at adding some Sensei that may work across multiple clans or just one clan. So that's the answer for Sensei. Rings. Will all rings be released with Ivory Edition, and will the possibility to win by Enlightenment be available at the beginning of an edition? So yes, we will have the rings, as usual, in Ivory. As for the victory, obviously, the card pool is going to be smaller. So yes, it will be possible to win, but it will, you know, as the card pool progresses, obviously it's going to become slightly easier. You will have more opportunities to combo cards to get your rings into play. A subsequent question on rings was, will there be great changes in rules regarding putting the rings into play? So we are changing some conditions for the rings to get them into play. So if you're an Enlightenment player, you will have to find new ways to get those rings into play. But other than that, you will have rings that have effects when they're in play. Only the condition will change.
Okay, a couple of other questions. I suppose I'm going to start with one that I can't really answer. We've been asked the question about the Eternity bug. Brian is dealing with that as part of the Design Diaries principle, where he's rolling out the information about Ivory Edition. Basically, to answer the question of what we're doing with that would be to spoil the information that's going to be in those future releases. I mean, suffice to say that I think it's fair to say we are doing something about that, but I can't tell you specifically what it is because there's no kind of middle ground where I can hint at it and say, well, it's kind of like this without sort of giving it away. So we are aware that there's been questions on the forum, the AEG forums, and that is going to be answered and tackled by Brian through the process of releasing information about Ivory Edition, and we do have a plan for it. So the next question is about honor. Will there be any crucial changes regarding the option of winning or losing honor? Will the numbers stay the same? There are no major changes to honor or dishonor in terms of the numbers. There is no change to the rulebook proclaim action. You can proclaim once per turn, exactly the same as you always have been able to. Well, not always, but in L5R's most recent history, when I was playing, you could do it more than once, but that was when I first started, that was a long time ago now. We've also been asked whether the option of winning dishonor will be available only for the Scorpion clan. I think it's a general condition of the game that winning by dishonor should always be easier for the Scorpion clan. I mean, that is fundamentally more what they're about than any of the other clans. So I think that's probably the best way of answering that. We've been asked whether dueling, naval, and cavalry, will they be changed or will they stay the same? And if yes, what will the changes be? That is covered in the design diaries, and again, that is a direct spoiler. I mean, if I say we are planning changes. Yes, we are planning changes. I will answer that question, but I can't tell you specifically what those changes are here, because that's spoiling information that we have as part of the planned rollout of that information. But yes, there will be some changes to some of those elements. Not all of them, but some of them. Ancestors, spirits, paragons, and Yodatai, will you support those keywords by releasing new cards for them, or will they remain keywords only? Again, that's a very, very specific question. I think the answer is we will do that if it makes sense to do that, right? If it makes sense. And when I say, when we answer if it makes sense, we're talking about if it makes sense mechanically in the game, and if it makes sense thematically in the game, we will use keywords in the future. But I can't give you a specific answer, because we're almost getting onto a card-by-card basis at that point about those particular keywords. Oni and Shadowlands. Will Shadowlands become once again an important and influential part of the storyline? So I think the way to talk about the storyline is the storyline is an ebb and flow. Clans sort of come into the spotlight and move out of the spotlight. The threats and the challenges and the different issues facing the Empire sort of ebb and flow. And that's actually part of the excitement, right? I mean, I think part of the excitement and part of the buzz and part of the key thing about the storyline has to be not knowing too much about what's going to come. The Shadowlands are an integral part of the storyline, and they will always be an integral part of the storyline. When you're not hearing much about the Shadowlands, you should be scared. Okay? The Shadowlands are and always have been a big part of the storyline. Sometimes their absence from the spotlight is as much of a warning and as much of a scary thing as them being right in the middle of the spotlight. But we don't. I mean, yeah. If the subtext is, are the plans to ignore the Shadowlands and Oni? I would say at your peril. You never ignore Oni and the Shadowlands. Again, I can't go into specific details of what we have planned for them because that would spoil the fun. But they are going forward, going to be part of the story. and you will have the opportunity to obviously interact with that. And the last one, again, it's quite specific. It says, will each clan receive a non-unique personality that augments the economy? For example, bow to produce 3 gold. That's really specific. I think the answer is, again, it will make sense. They will get that if it makes sense to do that mechanically and thematically. The cards that you've seen so far, there are reasons they do that in the story and for the mechanics of the game. If mechanically we felt we wanted other people to bow for gold and it thematically made sense with what was going on in the story, then we would do that. If we don't feel that is needed mechanically or is not thematically appropriate, we won't do it. So I guess if the question is it a design intent to do this for everybody just as a matter of design, I think the answer is no. If the answer is, would you ever consider doing this, then of course the answer is yes, we will. What we're trying to achieve is an exciting, challenging, balanced game where each clan has an opportunity to do its thing. And if the mechanics required that would happen, then of course we would do it. But I can't give you a specific answer of yes, the Phoenix clan is going to get this, and the Spider are going to get this. So, sorry if that answer wasn't specific enough. Okay. So that's the questions that have been written down. Now I know somebody came and asked us at the booth to answer a question, so I'll kick off with that. But then I'll just throw it open to the floor anyway. Okay? Because somebody asked us a question about the way the gold pool works, and if you bow to create an amount of gold during the action phase, what happens to it? So the pool empties at the end of the phase is the answer. So if you bow 8 gold during the action phase, you can spend that 8 gold in any way that you choose during the action phase. However, at the end of that time, the pool empties. So if you spend 7, you lose the 1. But it's, I think as Brian has pointed out clearly, if you bow 2 4 gold producing holdings and produce 8 gold, and you have one card that costs 5 and the other card that costs 3, and you spend that during that phase, that's good. Okay, so you're creating gold for the phase, and if you bow 1 holding to produce 3, play a card that produces 2, you have 1 left over. If you then subsequently bow another holding for another 4, you've got 5, and so on. So basically, the gold pool that is created from the cards that you bow during that phase and empties at the end of the phase. Does that answer the question that was asked? Yes, good. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions for any of us that we can help you with? Bearing in mind, as I said at the start, we can't spoil things. Okay, we don't want to get ahead of the sort of the rollout of information that we're trying to provide in a kind of exciting, interesting, and organized way for you guys. But if there are any questions about Ivory, then okay, I've got a hand up over here. No? Okay, here. Sorry.
So I ultimately think, depending on the event, we're going to give a more liberal opportunity to event organizers to use which format that they want to use. But there will be some specific events where we're setting how we want the result to come to us and which format is going to be used.
And regardless of that, the reality is any tournament organizer that does not follow the main format, which would be the equivalent to standard, would need to announce it 30 days before the event anyway, so that people can show up and have prepared for that event, obviously. So.
Okay, anyone else? Sorry, one at the back there, yes.
take this one because it's kind of a landmine question, and I am partially responsible for where the Imperial Assembly is now. We set out a little over a year ago to move the Imperial Herald to a virtual edition product. The process to build a website where we could do that was harder than we expected it to be. But we are very close to rolling out a version of the Imperial Herald with articles that are set up to be timely for players, and a place where you can get your information about the game where it's not 3 or 4 months behind. Our plan for the rest of the Imperial Assembly is to augment that with beneficial, non-timely packages that might include a printed herald or a special storyline poster or promotional cards or other things. So the overall experience of the Imperial Assembly is going to change from being a quarterly newsletter, which it was originally intended to be, to a virtual newsletter. But we're planning on making the experience of being an assembly member not just a virtual experience. You can expect that you're going to get things that move the storyline forward, that interact with you in a way that L5R has been very good at over the years through the Imperial Assembly. So we're hoping that you'll end up with the best of both worlds. And I am hoping that we're going to be rolling that out sooner rather than later. So I would only say that we're close if we actually were close. So I think that in the very, very near future, you're going to see something that you're going to like quite a bit.
Thank you. May I have another question?
Please.
I've been playing Fighting Night for 15 years or stuff like that, and promo policy is always because we all know that we don't have many new players, at least in Europe, and if you can get them to the game, it's always like, yeah, you need that promo, this summer compact, and of course, there are opportunities to get them on eBay or with the Christmas package. That's cool. That's a plus, definitely. But still, how can I convince new players, or is there a strategy you're planning to unroll to help us to get more people? The learn to play set at the start of base edition is good. Sorry, no pun intended, but it's good. And I think promo policy is what I've seen environments like in Diamond, I think it was promo policy was like St. Nicholas on crack. Yeah, I could pace my wall with the promos, but and sometimes now you have one promo for a whole player region. So basically the question is, just to summarize, is there a strategy for promos and is there a strategy for getting new players into the game with the help of the company, not only us? Because we are doing your work right now.
So
A lot. I mean, here's today a bounty hunter sitting here from like 10 years ago.
Yes. Yes. So I'll address these in order, right? Our promo policy got out of hand and it's been cracked, and we are fixing it. We realized that we didn't realize how bad it was until it was bad, and then we're fixing it. We have a double-sized L5R team at the office now to what we've had for a very long time. And we have challenged that team to make the Ivory Arc the most welcoming to new players and exciting for players who have been with the game in the history of the game, right? We're not talking a lot about that, and you're not going to hear us beating our chests and saying we're going to do all of this great stuff, because as one of my favorite cards says, right? Enough talk. The people who have supported L5R deserve the very best interactive storyline experience that they can get, and the card game players deserve to have a very personal connection to Legend of the Five Rings. One of the reasons why Legend of the Five Rings is not the size of, say, a Magic the Gathering, or has never broken through a certain glass ceiling in size of players, is because at its heart, it is a very personal relationship between us and the players and their effect over the storyline and how we want to run that business. On top of the fact that you have to sit across the table from somebody and be welcomed into the experience. You can't just flop cards on a table and say, okay, I know how to play this game. So with Ivory Edition, we are bringing back a rewarded demo program. We are actively providing demo product and learn to play product at the beginning of the arc. We have set in motion systems at the office that will make sure that our entire team stays connected with the people who are winning and changing the storyline of the game, to make sure that their connection to the game is as special as it possibly can be. And we're re-energized to do our very, very best job with Legend of the Five Rings. Again, because until we actually do that, it's just talk. We're challenging ourselves to deliver an amazing experience with Ivory. And so Ivory is not just about changes to the game and changes to the other things we're doing. It is us identifying the fact that what you just said is absolutely true, and we need to solve those things, and we need to solve them now. That while we always, companies always have, they make decisions for the reason that companies make decisions, right? We love Legend of the Five Rings, and at times we sort of ebb and flow with the property, but we are committed to ending the ebb and flow of L5R, to get it to a certain level and then make it stay at a certain level and have great spikes in enjoyment at a certain level, not have the game sort of swing in and out of this place where it's touching greatness, but it also reaches points where we're not connecting with our fans in a certain way. And that's not a promise to say that we will never design cards that don't work in an environment or we won't make mistakes. It's a promise that says, we believe that for our customers who have faithfully loved L5R at the high points and at the low points, you deserve for us to be doing the very, very best job that we can. And internally, we have challenged ourselves to make sure that happens. So I'm hoping that these words are not just words, that they are actually deeds.
We'll tell you if you're not doing your job right.
My personal email is available to all of you. I want to hear directly if you're not.
Specifically with regard to your opening point about promos, though, I go back to what I said, is that we, one of the challenges is to make sure that promo cards are never a barrier to entry into L5R. I mean, I think that's something that we've absolutely taken on board, right? That we do not want somebody to sit down, learn to play Legend of the Five Rings, go to a tournament, and then see a bunch of promo cards that they do not have access to beating them. Okay? So, we are very, very much, aware that should not be, that's not the function of a promo card, right? So we have listened to what's been said, we have heard what's been said, and we are, as I said earlier, working towards a new strategy with promo cards.
And I'll think that anyone who is who sort of peeks behind the window at what they might think of the economics of game companies or a collectible trading card game, I think that you will see that a number of decisions that AEG has made going into Ivory Edition are short-term, would be considered extremely bad short-term financial decisions for the company, but are ultimately better decisions for the players to have a thriving and growing and fantastic product moving into many years to come. We've got the 20th anniversary coming in a year and a half, 2 years, and we want L5R to be at its best and highest level ever when we hit that special date.
Okay, next question. Was there somebody there first? No? Okay. Sure. Yes. So the sure. Okay. So the question was, will deck building choices be more heavily considered, for example, for a tournament winner at a big event, or for somebody who wins an event in the results? So, if I build a corrupt crane deck and win, will that have an impact? So I think what John was saying earlier is we absolutely want to rebuild all of those kind of connections. Okay, so I think the short answer is yes. We want the choices that players are making when they play the game and in the way that they play the game to have a much bigger impact on the way the story goes. I think on the not the converse side of that, but on the other side of that, we also, and we learned this lesson a long time ago, that it's really not a good idea to penalize people when they do well in stories. So you don't want situations where one person's victory is seen to penalize a clan or do something in a way that affects a clan adversely for the majority of fans. So, going back right in the day to when Quesada came out of the capital with the hand-tie sword, but it was straight through his belly. That wasn't the expectation of the player who won the event. So I think it's really, really important for us to look at the story that a player is trying to tell us through their cards, and to create something that's going to be exciting and interesting and positive for everybody who's playing the game in relation to those choices. So absolutely we must take account of the kind of deck and the kind of story that the players are trying to tell us. And we need to make sure that when clans do well, in terms of the story, they are getting a really positive spotlight in the storyline. Again, from going back to the other principles, from a design perspective, of course, you don't want clans that are winning to be getting cards that make them more powerful. And that's a bad cycle to get into. So we will always be aware of the fact that when clans win, you can't simply give them something that makes them better. But I think the absolute crux of this is that we want that relationship to be closer. I mean, that's what John's been talking about here, is the relationship and the interaction between players and people who engage with Legend of the Five Rings in any way is more meaningful in terms of the story.
I mean, the world has changed dramatically since the first time that we sat down and decided that we were going to do an interactive storyline game. Because the internet didn't exist at those times, right? That a lot of what we were able to do for players became legend and passed from player to player during those early years. And I think that we have been a little slower than we should have been to adapt to the changing world. So the plan that we have going into Ivory Edition is more personal connection, right? But it's impossible for us to have every personal connection and to look at every deck. We would have to look at, things that clans in general are doing, or things that are happening in a wider scope. But we're going to make a significant effort to pull back the veil and connect you to how we're making those decisions, so that if you want to be affecting the story in that way, you can understand how that engine works and how we make those decisions, so that you can get your decisions in the right places for our development team. I look at L5R as L5R is the story, right? It is the IP is the story and the interactive property which we have created, and the card game is the sort of main engine for moving that story forward. And we're going to show you a sort of different relationship between those two things going into Ivory Edition.
We've got a question here.
There were so many words about connection between AEG and the players. Do you plan to start playtesting group in Central Europe for Ivory Edition? For example,
Okay, I think the question was, are we planning on having a Polish playtest team, right? Or a Central European playtest team. Honestly, I just have to give you the honest answer to that, which is I don't know. The way the playtest team system is run is it's run through Brian as the lead designer. I don't, and I'm sure Nico doesn't specifically know which teams are on the waiting list or who's applied for all of the playtest things. So I cannot give you a specific answer to that very, very specific question. Oh, okay, cool.
So the thing, like Mark said, it's based on application. So if you haven't applied to be a playtest team and you want to be part of that process, obviously you can do that. And if you have not heard back, feel free to ping again. Okay? Be persistent. The reality is there are a lot of teams asking. There are a lot of teams involved in playtest. And with the fact that we're trying to make multiple formats work, we'll have more needs in playtest as well. So that may open slots. Okay?
Okay. What's this?
What's your plans about the number of events in the future?
So first thing I want to say is when we decided to expand, it was due to the players asking for more events. As for do we believe we are at the equilibrium in events number? Personally, I don't believe that is the case. Obviously, we need to test across the board. The second thing that you were mentioning was about mentions, and it goes back to what we were talking about with connection. Now that we are more in the L5R team, we are actively, and we will be actively contacting winners by email or when we are at events proper, making sure that we understand clearly what they are expecting within the parameters that was set by the story prize, and make sure that they are going to be getting what they were expecting all along the process.
Yeah, I ultimately think that that any moment that you as a player get to affect the storyline, whether it's a single line or the name of a character or a life-changing event at a world or European championships, that moment should be special. And so the answer, like Nicolas said, is no. We have not struck a balance. But what we have agreed on internally is that no matter how many storyline events we agree to put out during a certain period of time, that whether we overshoot or undershoot, we will treat each of them with the respect that it deserves, and put forth the resources internally to make sure that that the people who have to service those storylines are able to do so in a way that's great for the players. And personal contact and an understanding of what's happening is the beginning of that process, and ultimately how we deliver will be the end of that process. We can't say the future number of it. So we can only start with what's going to go on with the Kotai, right? We know that there's going to be 50 or so Kotais, 50 to 60 Kotais approved. But the Kotai, the prizes for winning a Kotai might be different. I mean, are going to be different as far as storyline benefits. They'll be more balanced to what we can handle and how we can deliver a good experience to the people who actually affect the story. This year's Kotai is going to be very different than years past.
Yeah, I mean, I think perhaps to reassure you, it's to say that the kind of question you've raised is a constant source of discussion for us. Okay, and whilst I think we've indicated that we're not sure we're at the right equilibrium yet, it is a constant discussion. It really is a constant discussion. We want the interaction to be special. We want the story to be approachable and easy for new players to get into, so we don't want them overloaded. And we want each individual to feel like what they've done is matter. Yeah, sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah, John's just going. A constant discussion for the last year. Yes, not for the not in the 15. No. It's been a big part of the discussion about Ivory Edition. I mean, I should have corrected that. But given that this is a question and answer about Ivory Edition, it has been a big deal for us. And we absolutely recognise that it's another area that we really want to try hard to get right. Yeah. So, I mean, playtesting is a difficult job. It's a really difficult job. We constantly review the performance of our playtest teams. Brian and the player design team, at the end of every expansion, we look at which teams have contributed, what they've contributed, the time and effort that they've put in. And I have to say that, generally that's a very high standard. Sure. Yeah. And the point John was making is there is only so much playtest data that we as a company can digest, and the amount of effort that goes into putting decks together once a set is released. Suddenly you've got thousands of players putting 10, 20 hours a week into figuring out what the best decks are. When you compare that to the time availability, it's not like we're going to see everything all the time. But I mean, I think in terms of what you're saying, our job in playtest is to try and make sure that we catch any of the most abusive combinations or possibilities that cards that we're designing create, and get them to the point where the environment is balanced. And all I can say is that we do constantly review and try and get our playtest system better. And as Nico said, we are always open to new applications from new people. There has to be a finite size on playtest, however, because it has to be an amount of information that we can digest and that can be processed effectively. So I think it's about trying to get the best performance out of the teams that we have, and constantly renewing and reinvigorating those teams where we can. And if we feel that expanding by some more teams is the best way to do that, we would obviously do it. We would obviously do it. But.
So we have very differing opinions inside of our office about how to push design, right, for any of our products, and then how to deal with the fact that design may have gone over the edge. And we feel like our player base and the player bases of all CCGs is like the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States, right? Half of the people in the room probably think that banning cards means that we didn't do our job well, and that we are taking away some part of their fun when we ban cards in the play environment. The other half of the people in the room say those cards are abusive to the play environment, and they make my experience unfun. So no matter what decision we make there, we end up making 50% of our customers, and the loudest of the group of customers, very angry about our decisions moving forward. In a public forum, I'm going to say that I am always pushing our designers towards the edge of game design. The best sets are the sets with cards that are interesting to players, that change the environment, that make the play experience interesting. But no matter how many playtest teams we have, the closer we get to that, the more cards that we will ultimately have slip over the edge into the abyss. My personal belief is that the environment is more important than the individual cards, and individual cards are not a reflection of whether our design team is doing a good or a bad job. How we adjust to those things is ultimately a reflection of how we're dealing as a company. This is a public admission that we're fighting internally about this issue, right? But I believe that that we have a responsibility to the play environment to make the very best decisions that we think that we should make for the environment, so that the chances of this happening are limited. Will they happen? They do. Our players are smarter than we are, and they take good ideas and then make them better, and then make them dramatically better, right? So, as part of our Ivory rethink, right? I think if we see the environment, not even if we see, when the environment starts to slip in a certain direction, we are going to take, unapologetically take more dramatic action towards making sure that it is the best environment possible. And we are hoping that, that the players who are Republicans in that thought process and believe that that means that we're doing a bad job will see that we'll remember this and understand that that designing and developing L5R is a bigger thing, right? And our reaction to problems is probably even more important than the actual problems themselves happening, because with 100 playtest teams or 5 playtest teams or whatever, problems are going to occur, and how we deal with them is, in my opinion, more important than the problems themselves.
Okay. So, in the future, if it happens a situation like in Spain, I'm going to show you our screen.
Yep.
Is there a chance that there will be an immediate event?
Yes, there is a chance that there will be an immediate ban.
Yes, yeah. I think what John's saying is that we should take prompt, decisive action to deal with environmental issues, because overall the environment that the game plays in is more important than any one individual card. Okay, yeah, Darren.
We're trying very hard to be a company of old men that understand that we're living in a virtual age. So we have we have things in the works, but the answer is yes. We are trying, and we have partnership deals that we have been unable to announce and that we can't announce until actually something gets shown to us, which will allow us to not make a promise, but actually make an announcement. And that side of the business it's been very interesting, right? I mean, the time and the cost and to do that stuff well is well beyond what AEG can afford. So we need to work with partners on that, and it's about finding the right partners. And we have started a few times without the knowledge of the player base. And failed, and it has not been a public. Nobody's known about it, right? It's sort of started and not ended up where we've needed it to, because we haven't picked the right partners, or our partners haven't had the right funding. So we have things going on behind the curtain, and we're hoping that we can turn them into announcements in the future. So yes.
I mean, I think we've always taken the view with that it's more important to do it right than to do it quickly. So, we really want to make sure that if we go forward with that, we can, you know, we can be as sure as we can with our area of skill expertise that we're partnering with the right people who can do that. Okay. Okay, so we've sorry, conversation going on behind me. The question was about the policy on decisions for card rarity and how that impacts upon availability of cards that people really want. So I mean, I can give you a bit of background from the time that I was working directly with design on L5R and talk a little bit about some of the solutions as well. Rare cards are always tricky. Nobody wants to open a booster pack and see a rare card that they don't like. Okay, so you know, one of the important things for players is that they feel that the rare card is something special, something that they really want to get. So on one level, you want rare cards that players are going to, when they open the booster pack, they're going to go, wow, that's great, that's fantastic. You know, I got one of these. On the other hand, you try generally not to create rare cards that are going to be there in a way that sort of artificially creates a barrier, you know, to people playing them. That's always a balancing issue, and it's always going to be a matter of judgment. Now, what we have done and what we are going to continue to do to try to balance that out is we have the Koku redemption scheme. You know, that's something that we have done for years and something that we will continue to do. I think in terms of rarity, it's always going to be one of those issues that is a little bit subjective. You know, some people are gonna think, you know, it was a good choice to put a card in a rare slot. Other people are going to think it was a bad choice to put it in the rare slot. We are trying to create that situation where when people get their boosters, they enjoy opening it and seeing the rares, and that is really, really important. But yes, we don't want to create mega chase rares. That's never been. It's never been something that's been a conscious choice of we're trying to artificially create a rarity that isn't there, if you know what I mean. So we're trying to get that balancing factor, and you know that is slightly complicated in L5R as well, because you know very often, you know, one person opening a pack and seeing a rare and going, wow, this is fantastic. You know, that might be true if you're a Scorpion player, but you know the same pack opened by a Phoenix player, they're going to look and say, that's a Scorpion rare. So we're always trying to balance a series of competing factors in there. We are going to continue with the Koku redemption scheme, and we are also, you know, we're also trying to create a balanced environment for things like draft and other formats as well. Sure. Sure, of course. Yeah. Sure.
So what we've talked about internally to directly answer the question, we have had a Koku program for a very long time where people can get cards via the Koku program, and it has been the same, other than adding the bank so that people can get their cards in faster and not have the problems with mail. Internally, one of the things that we have talked about is that that when what you talked about happens with a card, we don't want to decrease the ultimate value of that card, but we do want to make it available to players. So we're going to increase the cost of that card in Koku on the Koku thing, so that so there's still a value to ultimately buying that card. But if you're a faithful L5R player and you have Koku and you're just sort of spending it on things because it's there, now you're going to be able to spend more of that Koku on cards that are more important to you, and value outside of the Koku system will actually help us determine whether a card should go up for 20 Koku or maybe go up for 200 Koku.
But will you then increase the stock? Because normally these wares are sold out daily.
Yes. So we are trying to keep up with demand for cards, and we are printing more and more and more sets. The Koku Bank, which is awesome, has it is awesome, but it has significantly changed the amount of Koku products that we are shipping out to players, because now they have access to hitting the button immediately. And with each set, we increase the number of cards that we do, and we just still haven't caught up to demand. But yes, we are printing more with Ivory Edition than we have ever printed before, and I'm hoping that will cover any of these things that happen.
Oh. One quick, two questions, everyone.
I'm a huge fan of graphic novels. Are you planning on releasing another one?
Yes, we would like to do another graphic novel. We have a fun announcement for Ivory Edition that has nothing to do with the graphic novel, but it does have to do with the way players ultimately affect the story and how that becomes a little bit more legendary than it is. That is part of the Ivory. That is part of the Ivory launch announcement. I can say for Ivory Edition, we're not doing a graphic novel, but the word novel plays into ultimately our plans for what we're going to do. If that's not a good enough hint, I don't know what is.
Okay, and last question over here.
So you're saying that you've got the Koku Bank, which is awesome, to offset some of the impact of chase rares, and your plan is to now make chase rares cost loads of Koku to make them more like chase rares.
So there's a double side of this coin, right? There's a double side of the coin. There is the inherent value of opening booster packs during and the card value that you have for finding those cards, right? And that is part of this experience. I mean, it's been a part of it from the beginning. So we're not looking to take that away, but we are looking to create a situation where cards, specifically like the ones that you're talking about, which are good in every deck, that they are priced appropriately, but not priced out of people's ability to use their Koku to get them, right? So if part of the joy of getting the cards that you want is not just getting the cards that you want. It's in the chase to get those cards, right? And any new customers that we make are going to be coming from games where that experience is a very big part of. Just be straight up, a very big part of the Magic card buying experience, where a lot of our customers come from. So. We hope what you take away from this interview session is that we have answers, and we have thought through almost everything that you guys have talked to us about, and we are hopeful that the groundwork that we have laid going into Ivory Edition doesn't just address some play concerns, but it is a global shift of good decisions for the player base, and in our ability to listen to problems and adapt to those problems in the best possible way for the players. We love you guys, right? We love this game, and we're committed to doing the very best job that we can do.
Okay. Okay, so just remains for me to say thank you very much to all of you for coming along and asking us the questions. It's good because it gives us an opportunity to talk with you guys about the issues, concerns, hopes, aspirations that you have and that we have. I'd like to say a quick thank you to all of the organisers for setting this up, for doing a great job. It's been fantastic. Yeah, I mean, the whole event has been exceptionally well run. I mean, you've only got to look around on the walls of this room to see how much effort and how much love and how much care has been put into this. And it's very humbling, and we are very appreciative of what you guys have done. So, just brilliant. I think that's the end of the question and answer session. Again, thank you very much, guys. We've really enjoyed being here. Thank you for being so welcoming and for being quite kind to us with the questions you asked.
I just want to thank. And that's the end of your lunch break, okay? Okay, you've got 8 minutes, sorry about that. All right, thanks very much to AEG for answering the questions. And, well, we are going to start the next rounds in 8 minutes.